Module 2, Job Analysis. Introduction to Job Analysis. Job analysis refers to a detailed and systematic process of breaking down a job into its distinct tasks and duties. It is a detailed process that considers all tasks to be performed and divides them into different categories based on their importance and frequency. An important concept in job analysis is that the job, not the person doing the job, is assessed. The job analyst should spend at least one shift observing an employee's job in the company. The assessment should be done during a typical day, so the analysis will reflect the complete, everyday employment experience. Once the analysis is complete, a list of job tasks the worker will need to learn for the job is compiled. These tasks are divided into 3 components. Continue clicking Next to navigate through the 3 components. Core routines. Core routines make up the main tasks of a person's job. These tasks will occur the most frequently, usually multiple times per shift. Episodic routines. Episodic routines happen less regularly. They may occur on an as-needed basis, or maybe once or twice per day. Work-related duties. Work-related duties are not written into the job description. These tasks include when to clock in, when to return from break, when work is complete. The expectation is that the worker will learn these types of tasks on their own while on the job. The training plan is affected by each category of tasks in a different way, so it is important to categorize every task and routine. For example, routines that occur many times a day give the employee a lot of chances to learn the task, while routines which happen only once per shift or as needed require judgment to determine when the task should be done and the skill to remember how to do the task when it is not being done regularly. Depending on the worker, the employment consultant may need to teach each routine differently or may need to adapt the task itself or the way in which the task is performed. For example, a worker may need a checklist to remember to punch in and out for their shift. Remember, before creating an adaptation or changing a piece of the job, allow the employee to perform it as any other employee would. Adaptations could make the employee appear different and be a barrier to fitting in. Job analysis involves 5 steps. Continue clicking Next to navigate through this section. Consider the company as a whole. Information on the company is essential to find out what is possible. Your aim is to identify which parts of the company offer the best prospects and opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. Start the process of job analysis by answering these questions. What is the purpose of the company? What are the company's goals? What are its products and processes? What is the size of the company? What is happening right now for the company? Is it growing or contracting? Is it developing new products? Is it introducing new technology? What is the culture of the company? What is the company's mission? Is it driven by financial concerns? Are people with disabilities currently employed in the company? How many and in what jobs? Have people with disabilities been employed in the company before? In what jobs? Are they still employed by the company? Why did they stay? Why did they leave? Decide which jobs to analyze. Once you have a general knowledge of the company, including its products, processes, and job opportunities, you can then decide which jobs to analyze. Clearly, analyzing every job at a company is a major and time-consuming task. Instead, be selective and focus on jobs that offer the best opportunities for people with disabilities. It is helpful to have some specific people in mind when deciding which jobs to analyze. Where there are a few jobs with the same position, such as sales assistant or clerical officer, it will not be necessary to analyze every job to determine its suitability for a person. Usually the jobs will be similar, so the analysis of a small sample will often be sufficient to assess the opportunity for someone. Collect information. Collect information. In collecting information about a job, you should find out the actual job tasks, which tasks are essential to the job and which are peripheral, how tasks are performed, how much time is spent on each task, why the tasks are essential, what materials and equipment are used, what procedures must be followed, the working conditions, the working environment, and the critical skills required for each task. While collecting this information, consider what accommodations might be required to enable a person with a disability to do the job. For example, will some modification of working hours be required, such as starting time, finishing time, or the length of breaks? Is there scope for some tasks to be performed by others without the job becoming meaningless? Is there scope for an exchange of tasks with another job? Will materials and machinery need to be adapted? Will tools and equipment need to be adapted? Will the workstation require modification? When using a company's job description for analysis, be aware that some tasks or requirements may be overly specific or be phrased in a way that appear to exclude some people with disabilities. For example, a job description that specifies that a waiter must listen carefully to customers' orders and write orders on an order docket excludes different ways a waiter could find out what the customer wants and record the order. With minor changes to the job description and some adaptations to the tools of the job, such as a menu with photographs, this job could be performed by a person with a hearing impairment. Information should be collected from several sources and in a variety of ways. For example, interview the employer, interview supervisors and coworkers, interview people who have done the job before, observe the job being performed, or do the job yourself. Interview. Interview CEO or HR. The CEO or HR will have a general idea of the job tasks and the abilities required to perform them. This may be based on a written job description or, alternatively, the employer's experience with the job. If the job has not been done before by someone with a disability, you will need to discuss it in detail with the employer to determine whether the job, with or without modifications, is suitable. Interviewing employers and educating them on job modifications or ways to best support employees with disabilities is part of the job analysis process. Interview supervisor and coworkers. Supervisors and coworkers usually have a better practical knowledge of a job than the human resources manager or other senior managers. Supervisors and coworkers will be in a better position to explain all tasks of the job in all situations. For example, it would be hard to find out the exact time pressures associated with a particular job from a job description or from interviewing a human resources manager. A job in the packing section of a company will be different when there is a rush order as compared to the normal pace of work. Supervisors and coworkers have detailed knowledge of time pressures, overtime requirements, teamwork, rest periods, quality standards, and more. These are all vital factors in deciding which people are best suited for particular jobs. Interview people who have done the job. People who have performed the same or similar jobs before can speak to what the job is really like. They can give important information, not just about the specific tasks involved, but also about their personal feelings and concerns about the job. These might include the positive benefits of being part of a team, job satisfaction, working with supportive colleagues, and being rewarded for high performance. They might also tell you about negative aspects of the job, such as isolation, monotony, stress, lack of support, and the consequences of poor job performance. All this information will help you to decide if the job is suitable for a person with a disability. If you can find someone with a disability who has experience of this job, or one like it, they will be able to give you very useful information. Observe. Observe the job being performed. Where possible, you should observe a person performing all the tasks associated with the job. This will provide a good indication of the physical, sensory, and intellectual attributes required for the effective performance of the job. It will also help you develop a profile of the people with disabilities who would be able to perform the job to an acceptable standard. Observation can also be used to verify any information from interviews with supervisors, coworkers, and managers. Observation, however, does not tell you what a person feels about a job or how it affects the person doing it. Observation is one part of the process and should be supported by other approaches to collecting information. Do the job yourself. If possible, you should do the job yourself. Even a short period of performing the tasks, lifting, counting, walking, listening, will help confirm your observations. It will also give you another perspective on your interviews with others and a better understanding of the job. In these ways, it will assist you in relating your analysis to the employment needs of people with disabilities. In addition to conducting interviews, observing others doing the job, and doing the job yourself, information can be obtained by other means, such as questionnaires and checklists completed by employers and workers. Examination of work diaries. This can provide information on the time spent on each task within a job, and a review of critical incidents. For example, you could ask a worker questions such as, what was the most important thing that happened in your job in the last month? What was the most dangerous, the most difficult, the most satisfying, the most disappointing? Record information. Once the job tasks have been identified, observed, and analyzed, record it in a systematic manner. This usually takes the form of a job description and job specification. The more detailed the information collected and recorded is, the better the chances you have of identifying a person suitable for the job. Tips for preparing the job description and specification. Continue clicking Next. Avoid overestimation or overspecification of requirements because it is likely to exclude people with disabilities. Distinguish between essential requirements and those which are desirable or preferred. Provide scope for people with disabilities to develop their potential. Do not exclude them because they do not meet the exact requirements. Focus on the job in the first instance. Then look at what accommodations can be made to make it more suitable for a person with a disability. Avoid jargon and use plain, concise language. Analyze and interpret the collected information. When you have finalized the job description and job specification in a way that does not exclude people with disabilities, decide which specific people should be considered for the job. You may not always find a perfect match, but if you have written the job description and job specification to avoid the exclusion of people with disabilities, you are likely to identify an acceptable match. If possible, refer 2 or 3 people for each job vacancy. It might stimulate the employer to offer a second job or a work trial to a suitable candidate. Also, people who may not get the job will still gain valuable experience of the interview process. Remember, if the company has not employed people with disabilities before, it is important that you do everything possible to make the first placement a success. The job analysis form is located under the resources section of this course on DoDD My Learning.